So, this is a picture of my 2-year-old grandson. And like most young children, he's already attempting to emulate somebody that he admires and respects and wants to be like. So he's got daddy's shoes on there. But I must admit, he's also tried on his mom's rain boots and her red high heels. So I don't know which way he's going to go yet at this point in time. But he's a lot of fun to watch. And I'd like to interact with you just a little bit. If Julie hadn't had the how are you feeling, I had something prepared as well. I'm going to show you a shoe or two, or 3 or 4, maybe 10, and just shout out a word or two that you think that shoe makes you think of.
Summer.
Summer, beach, comfortable. Okay.
Work.
Sensible.
What was that last one?
Church.
Church. Okay, well that happens to be one that my wife would be very fond of. She has a big bunion on her foot, so she needs a wide toe box and a bunch of other things, and so that's one that's very comfortable for her. How about that one?
Uncomfortable.
Business. Dinner.
Sexy. Yeah. Stylish.
Business.
Love the
Dinner.
words. Can't stand them.
Okay. Okay. How about that one?
Motorcycle. Harley Davidson.
Ooh, interesting.
Chain mall. Exciting.
Yeah.
Stay away from it. Goth.
What was that word?
Goth.
Goth. Okay. It's interesting. Some of you may be associated with male motorcycles and Harley Davidson and stuff, but this is in the women's shoe section at Nordstrom.
Styling.
Style? Okay.
Stephen Taylor.
Ward and Taylor.
Stephen Taylor.
Stephen Taylor. Okay. We're doing well. Okay. Classic Oregon special here. Portland. What was some of the words?
Hippie.
Hippie. Ooh. Okay. Where's it made?
Europe.
Yeah.
Size 43.
I just knew that for you we were going to need a cap.
Runner. Outdoors.
Okay.
Utilitarian.
What do I need? How can you say that?
Every day you do.
That's fine.
I look comfortable.
I'll just give a utilitarian on that.
Hiking. Adventure. Outdoors.
Work.
What kind of work?
Construction.
Yeah. That was what I was trying to get.
Sexy. Spice.
Sexy, spicy.
No, spice.
And
So, it's a designer's liker of tiger.
Okay. Thank you very much for your insights there into those shoes. I was in Las Vegas and I was tempted to take some pictures there, but I didn't have enough time, so I ended up doing it at Nordstrom's. So we wear shoes, but shoes don't exactly make a person, because depending on where you're at and what you're doing, you may change the shoe that you're wearing, and yet you do choose them in particular ways. But they tell us something, and I wonder, can we as consultants and coaches can we really walk a mile in the shoes of our clients that we're dealing with? So the upper left there, I think about blazing the Oregon Trail, was the thought that came to my mind, not just hiking or something. Do we have the ability to go out like a startup and do something that nobody else has ever done? It's been 50 years since the landing on the moon. You know, I don't have the guts to get into a spaceship and go and walk on the moon. That's what, I'm walking like 240,000 miles or something like that. Just this last week, I was excited though, because I grew up in the 60s, watched the moon landing. We had another moon landing that was attempted this last week by an Israeli private company. It was going to be the first landing of a lunar vehicle on the moon by a private company. Unfortunately, at about 1,000 meters, it kind of lost its engines, lost contact, and it crashed. So they weren't able to make it. So, was it a failure or was it a success? Pardon?
They learned from it.
Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu was there, who had just been reelected, and you know, after they got done, they basically sang a religious song. I don't know what they were singing, unfortunately, but they said, okay, we were the 4th nation to circle the moon, okay, beyond Russia, United States, and China. We made it to the moon, just you know, like, we got there, but it didn't land safely. So they got to keep going with what they're doing. I'd be more likely myself personally to walk the gangplank than I would be to walk the runway with that. But there's people that are doing that, and you know the stress that puts on people. You know, you deal with couples, a lot of you deal with women, and you were talking about the 14-year-old thinking she has to be something to everybody, kind of thing, and we make that way. Monks don't wear shoes at all. You know, they think that they have a different way of doing things. And then I just happened to watch the movie Jersey Boys, which is the history of Four Seasons and their lead singer. And so that made me think of the song that they have, Climb the Ladder Up to Fortune and Fame. And so we have women trying to break through the ceiling. We have everybody, lots of your clients are trying to climb some sort of a ladder and make progress of some sort. So that's looking at it from the shoe perspective. And what if we look at it from the job or the clothes perspective? So if the shoes don't make the person, what about the clothes? When you look at these images, what generalizations, first impressions, categorizations are you making in your mind, almost without thinking about it? What do you think or feel about each of these working types of people? Would you adjust your behavior based on what you see with these people? Are there people here that you would never work with? You don't like that kind of person based on what you see. I was trained as an engineer. There are different people I have talked through the years who won't have anything to do with an engineer because of the way we think. We're strange, okay? And there's others that probably won't come to a minister, right? To save their life or to save their soul. Others that won't go to marriage counseling. Others that won't, I know people who talk down HR everywhere in the corporate world, right? So, the upper left, is that a doctor or a nurse? I was looking for a doctor. That came up with the tagline nurse on it when I did the search, which surprised me. Is that a janitor? Or is that a business owner who's doing everything in the business for themselves? Is that a student? The tag on that was engineer. In the upper right-hand corner there, 2 women with the hard hats on. Construction engineer, perhaps? Which is the accountant and which is the secretary? Which is the accountant in your mind? This one? Or this one? The tagline said secretary for this one, and admin or something like that, and I don't remember what the tagline on this one was. Police officer, pretty easy, right? really have a whole different set of stresses that they have to go on. And all of you are going to be doing different things. And it happens to have a horse, right? Perfect. Okay? And then who's the salesperson? And what image comes up in your mind every time you say salesperson? So every one of us has some fun, especially when we're children or when we have children, going to a Chinese restaurant, and there'll be a placemat there, nice cheap plastic placemat, and there'll be the Chinese zodiac signs, and you'll have fun talking over the table, you know, what are you, and your kids will be going back and forth as to what they are and saying what they are. And I was a little disappointed that I had to find another chart that went back to my birthday, because this one only goes back to 1972 at this point in time. So I had to make a little chart there. So that's, you know, we have fun with this at least, but there might be people that you deal with being here on the West Coast with agents who really ascribe to this type of description of themselves, and that they're limited by the year in which they were born. If that's not enough, this is a terrible diagram, but let's go to the other end with astrology. Now let's choose just a few dates based on the moon, basically, and decide if that's what you are or not. So I'm a Taurus. My wife is a Taurus. Yes, we butt horns like mad. We've been together for 48 years, married for 42. We had an argument yesterday. You know, it goes on and on. But there's still something you can learn from this, and yet you can't let yourself be limited by that kind of a description. So the next most popular thing is, and I'm sure you're seeing this in a lot of your stuff, well, it's your generation. In fact, I heard it tonight when I was doing some networking, you know, well, that age group, you know, somebody's talking about their son, I talk about my son. This is a big issue in the business world about how does a leader deal with people who are very different. How do you deal with somebody who won't talk, who instead will sit here and text Bonnie instead of talking to Bonnie? Hi, Bonnie. No, hi, Bonnie. Very, very different people. And they have been influenced. I asked my own children who are 37 and 39, what was the most significant thing in your life? And they talk about the Twin Towers in New York and the terrorist attack. They have been more influenced by that than, you know, we mentioned hippies. You know, I grew up in the 60s, so, you know, I know about that. There's value in this, but you can't be limited because we are individuals. I would expect that some of you have already sort of choked on your throat that I threw this up there, because you probably think this is a piece of SHIT. There might be a few of you who actually are using this in your business as well. It's a common one. People know it. I was at a retirement party for somebody that worked for me and was an employee at Daimler for 40 years total. And in his speech, he got up and was saying, you know, I'm an I, and so I talk a lot. So Daimler was teaching DISC to these people, and they were doing it. How many here are high D? How many here are I's? Oh, but you know what you are, you see? How many of you are C's? Okay, how many are S's? Okay. It's common. It's easy to apply, is why people use it, and you can get some value out of it. You can adapt what you do based on who you're talking to as a result of that. But HR in particular, we have to hire the right person. They've got to value, they've got to be with our values and our culture. That's more important than the tasks that they can perform, right? So, we've got a plethora of profiles and assessments that you can run. I've got 22 that I know of. I have taken a third of these. Some of them I have taken 5 times. One of the most interesting stories I have is we did an MBTI, Myers-Briggs Type Index. I was about 30 years old, had 2 young kids. We went to a Holiday Inn. We were at the pool. 2 other people, another couple, us, and the kids are out in the pool and stuff. And we took the MBTI for me together. 4 people. And it was interesting because I would say, well, this is how I would answer that. And they go, no way, that is not you. You don't even know yourself what you're doing. So it's a lot of fun. I learned a lot from it. Nobody got mad or anything. The most recent one I think I had to do was this personal franchise assessment. My son and I wanted to buy a franchise, and the franchisor required us to take this because they wanted to make sure that we were going to be successful for them. They didn't really care if we were going to be successful for ourselves. They just wanted to protect their franchise, not the franchisee. What I find when I look at all these different things is we're still talking about the brain and the idea that there's 3 parts to the brain. And neuroscience has gotten a whole lot better at understanding the brain with encephalography and things. And, okay, I'm an engineer, so I at least think I think, and I'm very logical in thinking. Some other people have told me, no, when you make a buying decision, it is still reptilian or mammalian here, and you're just very good at explaining the logical reason for why you did what you did emotionally. So that got me to thinking, and to understand all of what we just talked about, we all have no trouble kind of segmenting and categorizing things. And this mammalian brain, this reptile brain here, is the leader of categorizing things. It will immediately, without us thinking about it, categorize you as to either you are a friend, you are food, or you are a foe. Okay? You didn't think I'd bring in the F word here, did you? There's 3 F words. And they're what's going on inside our brains as we are trying to be logical, if you will. I got into an argument with my daughter about Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid. 1920s or so, and there is no scientific evidence supporting his proposition. I can't call it a hypothesis or a theory even, that that's what things are done. So more recently I found that people are now doing what's called SCARF, where the S stands for status, the C for certainty in our lives, the A, we want to be autonomous, we need to be related to other people, and we have an innate sense of fairness. If you go to a schoolyard, not even a schoolyard, a playground with 3-year-olds, as soon as you can talk, that's not fair. Where did they get that idea of what fairness is? Maybe it's not entirely innate, but it's in there somewhere. And then because I'm in the business world, I added the ED. If you apply this to earnings and discipline, you'll get earnings if you apply discipline and do this. But it's when you think about all the people you deal with, whether they're couples or in the business world in particular, they're all trying to achieve status of some sort. It may be that they want to avoid failure. There's a fear there associated with it, but somehow their esteem, their self-esteem is based on status, the size of their office. Look at this facility, right? I'll bet we could all figure out who is the head honcho in the law offices here by finding the biggest office with the most stuff in it, right? So, as I thought about this, it came back to, I mentioned in the thing, rational emotion behavior therapy, which honestly I don't really know much of. I didn't even read a book on it. I couldn't do a book report. I could do a Wikipedia summary of what this is. Is it rational or is it irrational? But what it came down to for me is an argument. I think first and then I act. And emotions have nothing to do with it. When my wife asks me, well, how do you feel about this? I try to tell her, don't ask me how I feel. Ask me what I think of something. Ask me how I see it being. Don't ask me how I feel. It'll just bring up, I don't know. I'm not in touch with my feelings. But there's this cycle here, and I began to understand it a little bit better, but I have this little lightning bolt short circuit. I speak before I think sometimes, and it gets me in huge trouble. Well, why would I do that? Why would I speak, without having thought, and I never had any feelings, right? Well, what it comes down to is, I had a feeling that I had once before that I remember, and so now when something attacks me or approaches me and I see that same thing, I can just go right past the feeling part. It's in hate because I remember somewhere in my brain that feeling, and I don't want to feel that again, so I go immediately to the behavior. I punch that shark in the nose, okay? Because I don't want to feel that way again. Because I'm learning that through neuroscience now, we have learned that rejection is in the brain, the exact same neurons and chemical elements and same part of the brain as that punch in the nose would be if we got it to be, if we were the ones being punched. Physical pain and emotional pain are pretty much the same thing. So all of you have to do sales, right? You have to find clients, market. And it's all about not being rejected, making cold calls, warm calls, whatever it may be. People not ready now to do it, not doing it later and stuff. And, Tony Robbins is out there, and Brian Tracy, and if you're old enough, Zig Ziglar, and everybody else. It's all just positive thinking. You can do it. Cut that T out of there. You can do it. Erase the M out of impossible, because everything is possible. It's all positive mental attitude. That's all that matters, right? So that brought me back to the three things again. That it's really about understanding the thoughts inside our clients, understanding theirs and our own feelings about them, and then modifying the behavior. And in some cases, as coaches and consultants, we're trying to modify their behavior. And in some cases, when we're trying to work on our business or get better or pivot or change, as you did, Gary, we're working on our own behaviors and trying to change them. And there's the theory that when you want to change a behavior, how many days of repetition does it take to actually change a behavior? 20-something, right? Well, this is Lent, and I'm doing some meditations in the morning, and there's some theory, there's some practicality out there that suggests it's 40 days and nights that you need to change a behavior, and it's biblical, right? So that maybe it's not 21 days the way the scientists are telling us now. Maybe there's a little bit more to it than we thought in order to be able to change things and modify behaviors. So, when I put that back into that triune mammalian brain, I've got the thoughts, the logical side of me, creating the feelings, which is the reptile, survival and fear, and then the behaviors that I'm doing, not quite so good a connection there, but somehow those three triune brains, which is an early description of the brain, seems to fit to me with the rational emotive behavior therapy kind of thing. So, I deal with people, and you deal with teams and leaders in business. So, understanding some of what they're going through and what they have to accomplish, and what kinds of pressures they're under, can help inform you as to how you deal with them. Perhaps more so than a disc would do. So here's a picture of business. Every business. This comes from, this managed to mess up. It's not going to record very well. Looks like since it fell off my thing here. A Harvard professor back in 1980 came up with an idea of 5 forces analysis. And I was using it in the mid-80s, and I found it very useful to understand that even as a small engineering group, I had customers, I had competitors, I had disruptions and other things. But I also found over time that it didn't quite cover everything, so now I have 7 forces. And I'll go through it quickly. the world, the trends, what's going on. The fact that there's a lot of people retiring, a lot of people starting second businesses. All of us as coaches, one of our new competitors is the guy that just left the corporate world. Let's see, you were talking from the HR perspective, you're helping the women get out of the corporate world and become what? Coaches probably, to some extent, as entrepreneurs. They can be competitors right with us. So that's what we have for competition. We have risks of disruption. We get sick. We have the flu. We have measles. We maybe can't go into certain parts of the city because of energy. Rain was talked about. Sun was talked about. Snow was talked about. All kinds of things. One of the people here, two of the people here were talking about a big aircraft at Strategic Air Force Command where they would put snow and dirt onto your house when they're trying to clear the runway, because the runway was more important than your house. So you were disrupted by having to go clean your house after they took off. We all have sales and marketing channels, and it's not always direct. Sometimes we have referral sources. Sometimes we buy into a coaching system. So we have, if you think about it, they're trying to get to a market through you, and you're paying them for the privilege of being able to do that. On the supply chain side, we have services, we have parts, we have data, and we have supplies that we have to use. The supplies, honestly, simple things, in a machine shop, it's oil. But it's also all the stuff in the bathroom. Remember that worker that was cleaning the floor? Those are supplies that you need when you go through. How many of you have constant contact or MailChimp or something that you're using? And how many of you have gone to where you're using a paid version of it because of the number of contacts you have? Those are all things that you're using over here in order to get your business done. Market constraints, ICF is a good example to me. It may or may not be a competitive advantage in sales and marketing. And then again, if everybody has an ICF credentials, say in Europe where it's much more common, it's a requirement there, I would guess, rather than a competitive advantage. Here in the United States, it's differentiating you from others because it's not as common. Salem is in session. Beware. I don't know if you follow anything of what they're doing, but it's going to cost us, whatever it is they do. And most trade associations exist to help put small businesses together to lobby the government. So if you're in one technology then, I think the last session I was here, we had somebody who does IT help for small companies and things. Depending on where you are in this, and then inside the business you have people, products, and processes. Depending on where you are, it's going to make a difference as to how you think and what you do. Yeah, I'm going to make this as short as I can, because we're running out of time, I see. So, global trends. We have movers retiring, sustainability. We have autonomous vehicles being talked about. Would you feel safe driving in one? I'm sorry, riding in one. Suicide. Suicide is up. I just read an article in the Wall Street Journal about Utah and the pressures they're under with their religion. In sales and marketing, what happens if you have the wrong product? These are the kind of things that are informing the fears of a salesperson if you're dealing with them. They're worried about rejection. They're tired of travel. Some people love the travel, but some of them like getting away from home, some of them don't. These are generally incentive pay versus salary. These are people who are really out there challenging. These are SEALs, very frequently, as to what they're doing. They have to spend a lot of time entertaining. They worry about the price of their products. If they're on the supply chain side, again, they worry about pricing. I had somebody in a business recently talking about, well, the customer expects it to cost $35, but we're going to go in with $75 per unit as a cost. This was for millions of units for an automotive company. That's a huge difference. You're not going to stay competitive when you do that kind of thing. Inventory control is a problem. Delivery for everybody, food complaints, Ivan integrated. Everybody talks about culture. How in the gig economy, with everybody acting as a contractor for everybody else instead of being a full-time employee, how do you create a common culture? What if that contractor is working for 6 different companies? How does that poor person respond and be consistent with 6 different cultures, one for each client? Risks of disruption, lots of different things. If you're in manufacturing, these are the kinds of things you're going to worry about. If you're in receiving, inventory management, logistics, these are the things that you're going to be worried about. Active shooter has become a huge requirement now. And many of your people might be having to deal with that. What should you or shouldn't you do? Then competition, the sharks. I like the fact that you used a shark. That was great. It's everywhere. Online, video. How many of you do video-based coaching right now rather than in person? A couple of you. Okay. 5 years ago, did you use video? Yeah. It's yes.
There's some fun then.
Okay. All right. So the market constraints. Right now, we have a variety of different things. What's most important is, I'll bet some of you. How many of you have professional liability insurance? Okay. Only a few of you have professional liability insurance. Okay. That could be a big thing, depending on what you're doing. For any one of you who are in life coaching kinds of things, what if something you say causes somebody to commit suicide? And I understand now somebody wants to change the word commit to something else in front of suicide. I'm not sure what it is. And then you get sued because you directed them in the wrong way.
Remember, of course, they sometimes step on people's feet, so.
There you go. Yes. And then technology is affecting everybody in every business. The last 2 nights, my wife was complaining to me tremendously. If you die, what am I going to do? And honestly, if the light won't turn on, she doesn't know. I haven't taught her how to turn the lights on because I've automated everything with my iPhone and my iPad, and it all turns on automatically and off, but it doesn't always work. And if it stops working, she's asking me, who do I call? I have to have some person I don't know come into my house in order to do this? And then inside the company, we all deal frequently with culture, mission, vision, leadership, effective meetings, systems, in order to make sure that we've got everything documented. And yet, you get over 10 people and you end up having silos because people have trouble working with people. And so we need in our business, in our lives, a lot of people to help us navigate, sometimes have a moral compass for what we're doing. We see it frequently right now in the trade press, everywhere, that people don't have a moral compass at all. So we need ministers to help us with certain parts of our lives. We need medical and dental people. We need family who stand behind us. We need insurance. We need financial advisors who are going to have special things that they can help us with. So to kind of finish up then, we started out talking about the shoe, and whether or not the shoe fits, and what the word was for different types of shoes. And I quickly went to, it's really not about the shoe, it's about what's going on inside the brain, and how what's inside the brain ends up causing us to act along the way. And so with that, I thank you.
I love that picture. Thank you, Paul, very much. All right.